Introducing National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk programming that you can access 24/7. For the premier sports talk experience, tap into our Roku channel. Start your mornings with Mac and Jack covering all the weekend sports action. Then pour a cup and enjoy all the sports you can drink on the Coffee and Sports podcast. At midday, talk sports from east to west on the Coast to Coast podcast. Followed at night by some hot girl talk with Prim and Proper Sports featuring Sonia Pearson. Talk boxing on the Gloved Fist. Yankee fans tune in for Start Spreading the News. And there's more on the College Sports Huddle and Sports Scope with Robert Butler. There are 20 podcasts in all and 70 weekly shows giving us a 3.4-star viewer rating. To find us on Roku TV, search for National Streaming Sports on the Roku search bar. Click on the logo and you're in. National Streaming Sports, live and on-demand sports talk for America. It just might be the greatest sports franchise in the history of sports. A place where legends are made, and there's always something to talk about. Get ready to immerse yourself in pinstripes. Start Spreading the News, hosted by Paul Semendinger and E.J. Fagan, a couple of doctors with a prescription for Yankee fever. And now, here's Dr. Paul Semendinger and Dr. E.J. Fagan. Get ready to start spreading the news.
Yes, indeed. Let's start spreading the news. Paul Semendinger, EJ, will be joining us in just a moment. Just a quick reminder that the Start Spreading the News program is brought to you by Artemisia Publishing. You can find their phenomenal selection of fantastic books at apbooks.net. Check out Artemisia Publishing. They have books in every genre, fantastic authors, award-winning books, baseball books, including a number by me and a new one by me coming out next fall, hopefully in time for the World Series. But let's get on to the Yankee news. We've got EJ. I'm jealous of EJ because EJ, you're 2 time zones behind me now, right? It's now like 7 o'clock.
Yeah, it's 7 o'clock. It's a nice time. I'm going to go finish dinner after this. I'm here in the great state of Arizona, recording from my recording closet, which is why the background is so beautiful. And I got to go see some Arizona Fall League baseball, which I'd love to talk about.
Yes, you wrote a great piece on Caleb Durbin, and so I think we ought to start with that, EJ.
Yeah, so I'd never been to an Arizona Fall League game. Paul, I don't think you have either, right?
No, I've been to Arizona 40 years ago.
Oh, wow. Oh, well, you're missing something. This is a great state. What an experience, I'll tell you. I in my mind, I pictured like a vibrant league. Like I pictured like a spring training game, basically. Tickets were $11. It was general admission. I mean, you could sit wherever you want. So we sat right behind the plate. There were maybe 60 people in the stands. It was great. You could hear everything going on in the field. It was like going to a beer league game. Every word, every crack of the bat sounded like a home run because there was no background noise to obscure it. All the players, you could hear them talking to each other. It was fun. I highly recommend anybody, if you're in Arizona or you can be in Arizona during the Fall League. The weather was beautiful. It was 78 degrees outside. It was just a really great experience. I wish I was here a little earlier in the season so I could go to see more games. But I got to see Caleb Durbin play. Caleb Durbin was DHing, unfortunately, so I didn't get to see him in the field. Actually, it wasn't his best day. He struck out twice. He was 1 for 5. The one was a chopped ground ball he legged out. It's not his best day. But I'll tell you, I get it. Like, I totally get the hype now that I've seen him in person. One is like, you know the line, right? He's short, right? Like you know it says 5'6". It's hard to picture that until you let him stand next to like full-grown adults. Like it is amazing to see someone his size out on the field. He was standing next to guys who were 6'2", 6'3", and it looked like somebody's little brother was on the field. And it really was remarkable to see. And then when you see him bat, and he's curled up a little more, right? He's hunched down a little bit more, so a smaller strike zone. And he has this really interesting swing. It's both short, but you can see where he gets power out of it. I can see him having like real pull power with the swing. But I also see why he almost never strikes out and why he can take a lot of walks. He's got teeny tiny strike zone, and it has such a short swing. He can foul off basically anything he wants. So I'm a believer now. I wish I could have seen him on defense, and I wish I had some good scouting reports on his defense. But like, I think he can hit, and not like great. Like, I don't think he's going to be a 800 OPS hitter in the majors, but I think he's going to get on base, and I think he's going to hit for enough power that it's not going to be embarrassing. I'm all on board the Caleb Durbin train.
All right, so I wrote a long article based upon our discussion from a week ago or 2 weeks ago. I guess it was our discussion last Monday. Then I put a big long article on that the Yankees have to go get Vladdy, that's the move to make. I won't rehash all that here, but in my idea of getting Vladdy, my leadoff hitter would be Caleb Durbin. And I was against the Yankees batting Anthony Volpe first, because I wanted them to let him mature, because I saw and I see Anthony Volpe as the potential to be, an impact player for 10, 12 years. No one's ever really said that about Caleb Durbin. So I have less concern about stunting his growth, like I worried about the Yankees stunting Anthony Volpe's growth. Do you think, given a full spring training and the fact that he did so well in the Arizona Fall League, that Caleb Durbin would do a good enough job as the leadoff hitter on the 2025 Yankees?
I don't think it'd be my plan A. I think there's a world where Caleb Durbin's a productive major league player with a 700 OPS, right? Where he's a bottom of the lineup hitter. He gets on base a little bit, steals some bases. He's versatile defensively. But I don't think I look at his like 396 on base at AAA, and I just don't think that's realistic in the majors. He had really bad exit velocity. The one thing I noted, I looked up players in the StatCast era with the biggest gap between their expected WOBA and their WOBA, right? Because he doesn't hit the ball very hard, his expected WOBA is low. It's like 270, which, to be like, for reference, is like worse than Volpe, right? And that's at AAA. And so StatCast thinks that he's getting lucky, basically. Excuse me. Was putting balls in play, and they came in. They came in, but that's not the whole story, right? There's reasons why you might outperform what StatCast expects. One is speed. He's got enough speed. I want to see a sprint speed number on him, because I got to see like one play where he really kind of went all out, which was when he legged out a ground ball to deep third. But I didn't get to see him steal a base or anything like that. He was only on base once for me. He had 2 strikeouts. So you can imagine someone who's really, really fast, just legging out a bunch of things, turning some singles into doubles into triples, ground balls into singles. And if you look at the list of people who outperform, if you just look at the people who can beat their expected WOBA, it's a lot of fast guys, a lot of like light hitting fast guys. And so I think some of that makes sense. And the other guys who can do it are pull hitters, people who go right down the line. So like Isaac Paredes for the Rays was one of those. Didi Gregorius for the Yankees was one of those. And I could, I haven't seen all of his 10 home runs. I imagine they're pulled straight down the line, is my guess. Just because I just can't see him kind of putting the ball over the wall all that often. That said, he's got his share of doubles, both in the Arizona Fall League and in AAA. I mean, he can hit the ball in the gap. And so I'm very curious to kind of see, just kind of, I mean, maybe there's something weird with the AAA StatCast. I'm not super familiar with it. But kind of what's going on there, because his numbers over the last year and a half are extraordinary. They're mostly extraordinary just because he puts a ton of balls in play.
Well, this is my thought. So if he's putting balls in play and he's walking a lot when he's not putting balls in play, I don't know. Looking at the Yankees right now, if we just look around at the team, even if they don't get Vlad, and they're not getting him, this was just my fantasy that we talked about last Monday. I don't see a leadoff hitter.
I mean, they have to add someone, right? I mean, that's the reality, right? They have to add players. I think if you add Yanni Diaz from the Rays, he's the leadoff hitter. I think if you add Christian Walker, he's probably batting lower in the lineup. He's a high power, lower on base guy, but he's better than Gleyber. So, you could imagine him there. I think Carlos Santana is an interesting leadoff hitter. So I think there's options the Yankees have there. I don't think it's going to be Volpe. And again, Durbin could earn his way there. I just don't think that's your plan A. I think there's a world where Durbin's basically Brett Gardner before like the power surge late in his career, which is fine. Look great, actually, right?
And
I think
Gardner bat leadoff? Wasn't Gardner a leadoff hitter?
He was. But that's the best case scenario, right? Like I don't think you give up on trading for Yandy Diaz because you think you could have Durbin as a leadoff hitter. I think you treat him like a prospect, and prospects, they have their flaws, and you have to kind of see what they can do in the majors. The one thing about AAA is that there was a lot of they use the automated strike zone for most games at AAA, or 2/3 of games, something like that. And Durbin has a very small strike zone, so his textbook strike zone might be very hard for pitchers to hit. And without the automated strike zone, I wouldn't be shocked if he gets rung up more, kind of the opposite of what happens to Aaron Judge, right? Aaron Judge is so tall that a lot of low pitches get called against him. I wonder if Durbin is going to have both low and high pitches called against him because his strike zone is so small. The good news is that I think that in a year or two, we're going to have a challenge system. And I actually got to see the challenge system in the Arizona Fall League.
You mentioned that in your article.
Do you have an opinion on the challenge system?
I don't really even know how it goes. So you're gonna have to educate me.
The batter calls it, so not the bench. So the batter says, "I'd like to challenge that play."
And you said it happened this fast.
It was like a second. I was shocked by how quick it was. Like I expected it to go, batter challenges the play. Calls confirmed, right? Like I expected at least that long, just because you have to process the data, get it to the umpire, announce it, right? And when they did I think there's a couple of interesting ways they shortened that. One is they just got the time, like the time is down so quick that they know the answer basically right away. It was 1 second. It was the batter has challenged the play. Call is confirmed, right? It was that quick. And I was really impressed by that. I think the way they do it is that the stadium announcer is telling the umpire what the answer is. Because there's no way that it went from person, whatever, in the headquarters to the umpire, to the announcer as quickly as it went. I don't know that for sure, but it certainly seemed like that. And I was just impressed. Like I was like, this works. This is fast enough that I don't think it disrupts the quality of play. It's going to improve the quality of umpiring. It's going to eliminate a ton of frustration. Batters yelling at the umpires, managers getting ejected. Like it's going to really solve some of those problems.
How many challenges do you get?
I don't know the situation, but I think if you miss a challenge, I don't know. There is a limit to unsuccessful challenges. In fact, I saw some unsuccessful challenges, so batters were going for it. So I don't know. And I'm sure they could tweet that those rules might change by the time they get to the majors. I think we're going to see it in spring training this year. Like it's going to be there. And I'm just just watching it happen. I'm like, they got it. Like this works, assuming that it's accurate. Right.
Listen, I'm not a big tennis fan, but every now and again I tune in and Wimbledon or the US Open or something. You're like, oh, look, let me see what's happening. For a decade, has to be maybe longer, or I'm exaggerating, but they challenge plays in tennis instantaneously. Yep. Like I've never understood why baseball can't do it that fast. Like, yeah, it was in, it was out. Challenge, it was out. Okay, move on.
To me, I think it was just like the challenge of communicating to the umpires is my guess. And also just the accuracy of TrackMan. I mean, it used to be TrackMan, now whatever they call it. I wonder if that was just the problem. Like there was just certain balls that weren't being called. One problem we found at AAA is that the textbook strike zone is different, right, than what is actually called. And they can tune the balls and strike challenge system to the textbook strike zone or to what's actually called. I don't know what they've done. And that really has impacts. I really believe that we should call the textbook strike zone because the called strike zone favors pitchers. And pitchers have every advantage right now. And so if you force pitchers, for example, to not throw outside, the outside pitch is 2/3 of pitches that are just outside the zone get called strikes. And that's a huge advantage for pitchers. They know they can push it out there. And they actually get mad when they don't get that call. Garrett Cole gets mad a lot when he doesn't get that call, when it's clear that the call was right. That's not a strike. And also the high pitch, right? Pitchers get a little bit of space on top of the zone. And that's, that's part of what's going on here. So I think a player like Caleb Durbin and a player like Aaron Judge, players who have these kind of weird strike zones will benefit. The Yankees as a whole might not benefit because their catchers have been so good at framing. I think framing catchers will still matter because batters won't call they won't challenge everything. But it'll matter a lot less when you can kind of undo the effective framing with a challenge call. So I think we could see this like next year. Like honestly, if it's as good as I watched right there, like it's ready. Let's just do it. I think teams or at least players will be on board. I mean, players get frustrated with umpires. I mean, maybe hitters and pitchers will disagree, but like I think that the union might object to it just on the grounds of them not being a part of the decision.
Doesn't it have to be collectively bargained or no?
It does not. There's a committee on rule changes that the owners have a majority on. And so there's like 4 players and 5 owners representatives or something like that. And so they can basically push through whatever they want. But I really do think like this is a huge improvement. I loved watching it. And I am 100% on board after just seeing how quick it was, assuming it's accurate. Like the accuracy is something I don't know because I'm not watching on TV. And the TV cameras aren't always great either. But I imagine it's more accurate than an umpire. The umpires are like they're better than they used to be, but they're not good still. And I mean, even in the World Series, when you pick some of your best umpires to run the games,
I don't even think they
cherry
picked some of their best umpires. I don't know what
it was. Very strange. It was a very strange World Series crew. I didn't really matter. The Yankees were going to lose anyway, but I was not happy about that. And I think this could be good. And then it becomes a real skill to be the challenger, to know really if that was a strike or not. I mean, Soto, for instance,
he would be great.
I've seen him argue. Well, I think he'd be great at it, but I've also seen him argue balls like pretty angrily that were strikes. Like I've seen him be like, no, that over the corner. And, you look at the little box on screen, you're like, I don't know. So I think it's like there's like a certain amount of like self-awareness that's important to that skill. And, I hope that teams will practice it, right? I mean, you could really turn a game on effectively challenging calls and balls and strikes. And you could really lose a game by like losing all of your challenges early. And really, being at the mercy of the framing catcher. So I like it. I hope it improves umpiring. I loved it. We can keep talking about Caleb Durbin, but I wanted to mention that was one of my favorite parts of the whole experience.
All right, so let's. I think we're in agreement that Caleb Durbin's going to have a fair shot in spring training, and if he does well, he'll probably be the starting second baseman on the Yankees. And
maybe
here we go.
We'll
right?
see. We'll see who they could bring other people in still.
The big question, and so this is the one that's the whole off season is going to be hinged on, is Juan Soto. Now, I believe he met with the Red Sox. I believe he's going to meet with the Blue Jays. He met with the Mets.
Blue Jays, I think. The Mets had an offer apparently for him.
Yeah, I heard like $650 million, right?
660. We don't know how many years or any of the other terms in there. And it seems like this may or may not have actually happened. Maybe they discussed a number, but not made an offer. An offer is like an offer on a house, right? Like here's the paperwork. If you say yes, sign on the paper and you get the money, right?
The Yankees met with him today, correct?
The Yankees met with him today. I didn't see any news about this. Did you see any headlines about this?
I did not.
So, I mean, the Yankees meeting is the least important of all of these because he knows the Yankees.
Correct.
You don't have to make a pitch like, this is, these are our facilities, these are our coaches. Like he knows all that. They might say like, look, we're planning on running a payroll this high for this long, right? That's something Steinbrenner could say and say, look, we're going to back you up with more players. But I think this is a courtesy, right? It's we're going to make a big offer. We'll talk. And I think my guess is that unless Soto had some grievances that he wanted to talk about, I don't know. And this is the chance. I don't like, I always wonder how much like dumb stuff ends up in this discussion. Like, I want the suite on the road or, whatever that kind of, I want my locker over there, not over here. It's the time to negotiate all of that. And I'm sure there's some of that kind of little stuff, but my guess is that a bunch of teams are basically showing like hype videos to him and said like, we're the Red Sox here, here's what we do.
You'll be the next David Ortiz. Yeah. I read that somewhere.
Yeah. Something like that. And to me that's just all window. This is about money, right? That's just all window dressing. And my theory is Soto has an idea of where he wants to play and he's going to say whatever after each of these meetings in order to get as much money but still play where he wants to play. That's
So
my
if the
guess.
Mets offered 660, do you think they brought that up in the meeting?
I guess. I mean, it's I've been reading some of these news reports, and I'm not really sure what happened. Like the Mets were thinking about 60. They mentioned 660. It's clearly that they didn't like hand him a piece of paper and said, "Here's your contract for 660." Didn't say how many years. There's other information. There's other like important things like opt outs that could really matter for those numbers. It could be deferred money, right? We don't really know. Look, we know Steve Cohen's going to offer a boatload of money. And one thing about 660 is it's really not that much more than 600. If it's
No, if it's
660
over 12
14,
years or whatever, right?
right?
If it's over 10 years, it's only $6 million a year.
Yeah, it's an extra 2 or 3 million average annual value over the course of a contract, and like I don't think that's going to stop anybody. I think if the Mets offer him 55 million a year or something, then we're starting to get into kind of it's Steve Cohen's money and no one like and he doesn't care about it mode. And like good for him. I mean, I wish we had more owners like that.
55 times 12 is 660.
It could be that if it's a 12-year contract, it could be that. And again, like there's a world where this gets stupid, right? And you don't like signing Soto is not the smart move at that choice at that number. I don't know. I mean, I don't know what it is if it's 660 over 14. It's still really the same amount of money to Soto if it's over 14 or 12 or 15 or whatever, because when he's 38, 39 years old, he's not going to be getting a big contract. Maybe he will. I don't know, but probably not. So like I think the headline number is what matters to Soto, not the years, though we've heard he cares a lot about average annual value, at least getting over 45. I think it's clear that he's not going to be cheap. We'll see what happens. If I'm Juan Soto, an extra $40 million here, $20 million here is less important than kind of the other aspects of where I want to play. And that's what happened to Aaron Judge, right? Aaron Judge turned down a slightly larger offer from San Francisco. And I think he's probably happier because of it, right? And again, I suspect that's kind of where, he's not going to say that out loud, but I think that's probably where it ends up landing. And the question is does he want to play for the Yankees?
All right. So we don't do a whole lot of football here, but just bear with me. The Jets, who are a complete and total disaster always, they brought in Aaron Rodgers, the big-time quarterback. This is the 9,473rd different time the Jets have brought in the big-time player, and it just never really works out. In a similar sense, the Mets have brought in Scherzer and Verlander and Bobby Bonilla and Brett Saberhagen and on and on. You just go down the list. This guy, Roberto Alomar, Eddie Murray. Yeah, some of these guys are past their prime, but each time they do it, it's like, oh, we got the guy. The Mets seem to be a place where great players, and maybe it's different with Steve Cohen, but I don't know. All things being equal, if you had a $660 million offer from the Mets and a $660 million offer from the Yankees, what would compel someone to go to the Mets if the offers?
You never know, right? David Stearns is a good GM, right? So maybe some of those things have changed. Francisco Lindor is one of those big time players that's really worked out for them. So like, I don't know, like, I don't want to get inside the guy's head because I'm not there. Like, I don't know what the answer is. I think that nothing we saw in his time in New York indicated that he had a negative time. I think he had a great time. He went to the World Series. He bonded with some really close teammates. I think he and Aaron Boone have a good relationship. One reason to bring Boone back. I think he and Aaron Judge have a good relationship. And I think that, the Yankees are a team that are clearly going to be contenders for a while. I think that's also clear. The Mets are also going to be contenders if they have Juan Soto, right? The Mets are also going to be contenders, especially with Juan Soto. So are maybe not the Blue Jays, but the Red Sox are in a really good place right now. Like, the case is pretty much the same in all of these places. And I think it's just the human element. My favorite, the best baseball podcast in the world is called Effectively Wild. And they used to call this the avocado factor. Like maybe Ohtani signed with the Angels just because he can get good avocados in California. right? Like you don't know. Like there's a million reasons why. I don't think Soto has a family, so that may be a little bit different. Maybe he just doesn't like New York, and he's going to try to find a place that's not in New York. Like we just don't know the answer. And I like unless the only reason I would get mad if he picks somewhere else is if the numbers are really off, right? Where the Steinbrenners say we'll offer you $500 million, and then they don't. Now, I don't think that's going to happen. I think they're going to offer him a 6, a number that begins with a 6. I also think that Steve Cohen is just richer than all of these people, and is just in a position to offer more money if he wants to. And so if it's a pure dollars and cents, like I think he ends up on the Mets. I'm very skeptical that it's pure dollars and cents or that it's a true blank check from Cohen.
At what number do we not be mad if the Yankees don't get him? Let me take a step back.
55 million average annual value. I'm kind of okay letting him go.
All right, so 55 for 10. That's 550 million.
Well, you said 12 before, which would be the 660.
Right. But this is what I'm trying to get at. We went around and around. I don't know where you and I think we ended up disagreeing on this one. I disagree with a lot of people on the blog. Yamamoto last year, and look, it's all good. He went to the Dodgers. It's fine. But the Yankees came in 25 million less. And everybody wants to say, well, it's just going to be a Dodger. So maybe, but they didn't make the offer. Well, the Mets did, right? But the Mets aren't the Yankees, and the Yankees offer something that the Mets don't offer because they're the Yankees. So that my question is, so if the Yankees offer 55 over 10, 550 million, are we saying, yeah, that was good enough?
I think,
or does it have to
when you start to get into a luxury tax world, 55 million is a lot of money for a player. And I think that I would like an average annual value under 50. And that might mean extending the contract. And I don't think that's a bad thing, right? More money over more years.
Less annually over more years.
Yeah. So say the number I've had in my head was, I think 600 million, 13 years, right? That to me was kind of what I thought he'd go for, or 14, something like that, which brings him to his late 30s. So it's not an absurdly long
That's 46 million.
Yeah. Now that it might take more than that. We'll see if this Mets offer is real. The Mets offer, we don't know. It could have strings. I think the difference between Soto and Yamamoto is that Yamamoto was a huge risk. I still don't know if that contract is going to pay off for the Dodgers.
No, I don't. That's irrelevant. My point is, everybody says he was definitely going to the Dodgers. Maybe he was. That's fine. But the Yankees didn't match the offer. So you can't say that definitively.
Because I don't think they should have matched the offer. I think that was a bad contract for the Dodgers. And Yamamoto's been injured this year. He had good overall numbers after a bad start in Korea. But he's like, I wouldn't be shocked if he ends up with Tommy John next year, right? Because he's young, coming from a 6-man rotation, all the normal stuff that we have with Japanese players. And it's just a lot of money. Like when we first talked about Yamamoto, the cost like MLB trade rumors and others was projecting was like half of that. It was like, okay, this guy makes a lot of sense at $150 million. At $300 million, whatever they ended up paying for him, like it just didn't make a lot of sense to me. And so, like, I do think there's a number that, like, there's an economics is a principle.
That's Soto.
There's a principle in economics called the auction winner's curse.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, we talked about that.
Right. The idea being that if a lot of people are bidding, someone's going to be the high number, and that's probably not smart, right? It's probably not smart to go as high as the highest bidder. Soto, the nice thing about Soto is that he's so good, right? He's not a question mark. He's basically as reliable as you can get for a free agent. He's a hitter. He's going to age well. We think, he's young. He's already one of the best players in the world. Like, there's no but there, as there is with most free agents. And so the harm is only like, are you trading one player for two players? One of the reasons to have one player on the roster is that you can then sub in a young player and spend the same amount of money as if you had bought two kind of okay players. And so you could end up with, say, Austin Wells and Juan Soto versus, for the same cost of, Christian Walker and one other guy and Blake Snell. And you win with the Juan Soto, Austin Wells deal. there's a point where that no longer becomes the case, where instead of Juan Soto, you could legitimately go get Alex Bregman and Blake Snell or something like that. And it becomes the right baseball move to not do it, assuming your budget's limited. If they sign for Juan Soto for $55 million, like they're not going to have much money left over, period. They're going to have to go cheap on first base. They're going to have to play Caleb Durbin. They're going to have to play Jason Dominguez. They're not going to be able to go and get guys, another pitcher. They're going to have to trade Marcus Stroman, right? Like there's, it becomes very hard to fill that roster out. I still think like a lot of money is a good price for Juan Soto. I don't know where we tip into you pass. The Mets might be willing to go, run a payroll at $400 million or something. And so that number is higher for them. But if the Yankees aren't, which is just might be just a reality that we have to deal with, the Yankees aren't willing to go much above $300 million for a while. I think that is a defensible baseball position. We'll see what the number is. Like when we actually see the number, we can comment on it and see how short the Yankees were or how high, Steve Cohen might be like, okay, here's $800 million. Like, well, I don't care. I don't know. But if it's Juan Soto is one of those guys that the number is small, $1 million average annual value, $2 million average annual value over the course of the contract, one extra year. Like at that point, I think it does not make sense to pass on Soto. I think at that point, it's if you're willing to go $620 million, you should be willing to go 640. Like that, the difference is negligible because you're talking about so much money.
All right. Well, it will be interesting to see how this plays out. When do you see it?
Yeah, I'm looking forward to some reporting on what actually happened in that meeting. I'm curious if there's anything on The Athletic right now. Because like I don't think any words really matter here unless you hear like it was a disaster. Even if he has no interest in return to the Yankees, he's going to say, yeah, it was a great meeting because
right.
that
they're always
the
great
price
meetings.
for everybody else.
Right.
Well, it was just like, I think about the Red Sox meeting that he walked out of that he said it was a really good meeting. And I was like, that tells me nothing, right? Because like maybe he wants to play in Boston. Maybe he just wants more money, right? And so he wants to have another bidder out there. And so you can't trust anything anybody says publicly because there's so much money at stake. It may be the case that the Mets aren't offering 660 or rather the Mets are offering 660. No one else wants to offer 500. And all of a sudden the Mets just overpaid for him by $160 million, right? Like that's how this is such a big deal that I think it's slow. It's actually, it amazes me in baseball, in sports, how quickly such large deals get done. In no other world does a $660 million deal, except I don't know, maybe like the world of like tech billionaires, right, get done that quickly. It's going to get done in 3 weeks. And really it's going to come down to a bunch of people bidding at the last minute. And that's weird. And I'm looking forward to it developing so we can get on with the off season.
Right. Because nothing's going to happen until Juan Soto's signed, right?
Yeah, and or at least not major players, right? Like if you're Corbin Burns, if you're Willie Adames, right? You want to go to the player that tried to sign Juan Soto and failed, right, to the team that tried to sign Soto and failed. The Yankees have to kind of build a team without Soto if he ends up there. I speculate. I think Chisholm's an outfielder if they don't sign Soto, just because they can then go and get a Bregman or an Adames or someone like that. Just because that's where the talent is right now. They could try to get Vladito, whatever. Like they have options without Soto, but they need to know that before they do it. I look at, for example, the Rays, who suddenly don't have a ballpark and may not ever have a ballpark. Are they selling some of their guys, right? Those moves are all going to start happening once a bunch of teams realize they're not getting Soto and they have a ton of money to spend.
Bregman was on the cheating Astros. Does that factor in at all into the way you would consider? I don't want him because I think he's old and I see him like having a decline. I'm not giving Alex Bregman, I think he's 34, a 5-year contract. We just did that with 30. DJ LeMahieu. He's only 30?
Yeah, but he had a year that is a little suspicious this year.
Yeah, I'm not going long term on him. I thought he was a little older, but I'm still not doing it. But absent of that, if he were available and he were still putting up big numbers and all that kind of stuff, does the Astro thing have any relevance to you in your decision making?
The Yankees have brought in other Astros from that team. Look, I think it's in the past. I think I think he'll get booed, and people boo Yankees. I think that's okay.
Tino Martinez got booed.
Yeah, right. Like I just don't. I don't think it's a concern. I don't think it's going to lower his price. I don't think it's going to prevent teams from buying him, and so I wouldn't think about it too much. We're going to love Bregman's one of those guys that you love when he's on your team and you hate when he's not. And I think the Yankee fans would like Bregman if he came here.
You didn't see him play, but that is or was the definition of Ricky Henderson. 100%. Oh my God. You couldn't help but love Ricky Henderson. He was
There's
so
a lot of players
dynamic.
like that. It's a common thing in sports, right? Like teams love the guy who's a bit mean to the other team players. And Bregman's just one of those guys. If Soto signs elsewhere, then like that's the conversation we have. I still think like the odds are pretty good that he signs with the Yankees. Like I don't think we've seen anything to change that at this point, other than we know the Mets are going to spend a lot of money, but we knew that already.
Everybody says Soto's going to go to the highest bidder. And what you're saying is, maybe not.
No one knows but him. He's going to say that right now, right? And so you can't trust a word out of his mouth. You can't trust a word out of Scott Boras' mouth. You can't trust a word out of the team's mouth, right? They might even know that, like, have some inside intel that Soto prefers the Yankees, right? But there's like a massive game theory problem going on right here where everyone's bluffing and trying to hide information from each other. And like, this is going to resolve itself and we'll know the answer. And it sucks to be patient. I want more baseball news. Not lots happening right now. I just think that you should not bother reading tea leaves because everybody's manipulating each other.
I don't disagree at all. And so I really haven't read any of the articles. I'm just asking the big questions there. So you also wrote an article about a guy who's going to be very cheap.
Yes, Roki Sasaki.
Yes. Now I'm reading that he is definitely going to the Dodgers. Let me walk through this. He's definitely going to the Dodgers because they have Yamamoto and Ohtani. Or if he doesn't go to the Dodgers, he's definitely going to the Padres because they have Yu Darvish. Do we say that about, I don't know, players from the Dominican Republic? He's definitely going to play on this team because there's that guy, or he's players from.
There is a little bit of a unique aspect here, which is why I think the Dodgers speculation is not crazy. It's just endorsements, right? I mean,
that's a whole different story. We get to that in a moment. But do we get that? Do we ever say that about? Well, he's a Canadian.
No, look.
So he's going to go to that team.
Chapman went to the Reds, right? Like who knows? You don't know what's inside this guy's mind.
Thank you.
Here's what we know. He is a young international free agent. He's 23 years old, which means he has to abide by normal. He's a pitcher. He has to abide by normal international free agent rules, like Ohtani did when he first came over, which means he's just a prospect under team control for 6 years. And teams cannot pay him more than the league minimum salary and their international bonus pool. However, it's near the end of the year. Most teams have spent their international bonus pools. So at most, we're talking about $1 million here, $1 million there. No team is really going to be able to blow him away by offering him $10 million or something like that. I think the Dodgers have $2 million left over in theory for him. The Yankees have $1 million. The Orioles have somewhere in between. So there are some teams that save some money for him, and they can, in theory, trade for a little more from the other teams. But if he is motivated by money, he made a bad decision because he could come over in 2 years and make Yamamoto's contract if he's still healthy. Or I should say, if he's motivated by salary, in theory, he could make up for that with the kind of fame and endorsements that have come to Ohtani and maybe, I don't know about Yamamoto. And by playing in a big setting, he could make that up, which is why people are speculating the Dodgers, that maybe the Dodgers are the one team that could actually elevate his profile enough to bring in that kind of money. I don't know. Ohtani's kind of a special guy. I don't know if other Japanese players can bring in that kind of money. But still, like, that is not a terrible theory of the case. I think the Yankees have a pretty solid case. Let me just recap. He's 100. He throws 102. He's 6'3", doesn't weigh enough. Probably needs to add a little bit of weight. Has a splitter, has a slider. Like he's a really good pitcher. He has really good numbers in Japan. He's had trouble staying healthy. He hasn't pitched a ton of innings. He has at times like been abused. Like he had pitched like a 200 pitch game at one point. You know that kind of stuff. He's been in a 6-man rotation in Japan. So there's some reason to be a little concerned about him. And the way I read this is that he's not as good as Yamamoto. He's got really good stuff, but he's not the kind of guy who's going to give you innings, and he's probably going to get hurt. And so he doesn't deserve Yamamoto's contract, but would still be the best pitching prospect in the game. Would instantly slot into a major league rotation, and would probably be pretty good. Though would be like a 5-inning guy. Probably needs a 6-man rotation too to keep him healthy. Just because it just sounds like he doesn't have the weight to throw as hard as he does. Maybe he could put that weight on. We don't know. So what's the Yankees pitch? And I think the Yankees have a pretty good pitch. I think the Yankees have one talent that we don't talk about a lot, which is they're really good at keeping starting pitching healthy. Do you know the last Tommy John surgery the Yankees had?
I do not.
Luis Severino in 2019. The last starting pitcher to go down with Tommy John, or at least major starting pitcher. They've had some relievers go down with Tommy John, but not really all that many, frankly. And before that, I think, I think it was Jordan Montgomery in 2018. And the other teams, a lot of the other top teams don't have that record. The Dodgers have lost a ton of guys to major elbow, shoulder, other stuff. You just kind of go down the list, like pitching is a graveyard right now. Like the Rays have lost a bunch of guys. It's a lot of teams prioritize pure stuff over health, and I think the Yankees don't. I think the Yankees are pretty good at that. Now maybe it's the pitchers themselves. Maybe Garrett Cole and Carlos Rodon, and these guys are just big dudes, and so they don't go down. But I think the Yankees might have some claim that they've kind of figured it out. They may not talk about it a lot. It's probably a little bit of secret sauce. But I wonder if that's the pitch. Like, hey, you're having trouble staying healthy. We can clean your stuff up. We can monitor you, put you on a routine, and help you avoid Tommy John surgery. Look how we did it with these guys. Think about Clark Schmidt, Nestor Cortez. Maybe the Yankees caught those early and prevented them from going down with Tommy John surgery. So I think that there's a good argument there. By the way, Luis Hill had Tommy John. I forgot about that, but that he was a minor leaguer at the time. I wonder if that's part of it. Maybe just the pitching, the Matt Blake of it all may also be something that's important to him. And then, if he cares about endorsements and fame and being on a big stage, you got New York, pretty big stage. Maybe not as big in Japan as the Dodgers, but as good as you get other than that. And maybe who knows? What's inside his head? We don't know. He can pick whatever team he wants. Maybe he wants to, burn brightly, away from other top Japanese players. We don't know.
All right.
I think the Yankees will have a pretty good pitch, and he'll ultimately choose the team and whatever team.
Right. He's just going to go where he wants to. Can't be about money, right?
No, because even if it was really about money, he'd wait till January when teams' international bonus pools come back. It's really strange, frankly. Look, I think that we'll get some reporting on this when he comes over eventually. Is there a window?
Is there a time frame that it has to happen?
I believe he has a month from this posting period expires before the end of the year, but he can be reposted.
Oh, okay.
So it's like a month from some date. So there is a little bit of a clock on him. If the Yankees can get him, I mean, that really changes your offseason, because now you've bettered your pitching staff, and probably locked in a 6-man rotation, but you've bettered your pitching staff for no money, right? He's going to get paid the league minimum. He's going to pay the league minimum for a while. Like Major League Baseball is not going to let some team secretly negotiate a backroom deal where he signs a $200 million contract the day after signing the league minimum contract, right?
Right.
He's a prospect, and he's going to get paid like one. And why is he doing this? I think some of it might be kind of Ohtani being I just want to play with the big guys. Let me go. I'm too good for the National League in Japan. It also, my other speculation, it's kind of, I remember when Luis Severino signed kind of an undermarket contract and immediately got hurt. I
Mm.
wonder if he's not in the best shape right now and kind of wants to get over the United States before Tommy John surgery or something. I don't know. Like that's just all pure speculation. All we know is that he's got really good stuff. He's going to be a good pitcher, probably not going to be a pitcher who goes very deep and is an injury risk.
All right, here's the thing. I just thought of this as you said that. I don't even know if this is a thing. I'm making this up out of whole cloth. It's a question. It's not a
Mhm.
supposition. It's not a theory. It's a question. When people have Tommy John surgery, they have Tommy John surgery in the United States. There are a couple of renowned Tommy John surgeons in the United States. If there's an international pitcher and they need Tommy John surgery, do they get surgery in the United States? Do they come here
I
for
have
that
no
surgery?
idea.
Yeah, I
No
have no
idea.
idea either.
I don't think that I think like Tommy John's not one of those things that like you're immobile until you have the surgery. Like pitchers like wait a little bit. Some of them even work out to like strengthen some muscles before the surgery. And so like I think you could have that option, but I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I don't know. That's interesting because you just said like maybe he just wants to get here, and does that mean he gets the surgery here rather than I don't know. It's something
Yeah,
that
it's
keeps
not that he
popping
wants
up
to
in our
cash in, right? Because he's got like he's gonna if he gets injured, he's still on league minimum contract.
Hmm.
Maybe he wants to. I don't know. Like it's weird. I think it's probably not about money. I think it's
Yeah, I
probably
don't think it
about
is either.
wanting to play in the major leagues.
Which is cool. You gotta like that. All right, so I heard
Oh
this.
yeah,
The Pirates, Luis Heel just won the Cy Young Award, and Paul Skeens
the
for
rookie
the
of the year
Pirates.
award.
But I heard something that because they won the Rookie of the Year, the teams lose 1 year of control. Is that true?
I believe the way it works is if you were under a year of service time, you get bumped up. So I think Heel was on the roster the entire season. So I
So
don't think he
the
gets additional
Pirates lose
service
a
time. Where
year,
Skeens was called up late,
right?
right? So essentially, it's effectively as if Skeens had been called up on day one. Whereas Heel was on the roster the entire time. And so I don't believe Heel gets any extra service time out of it. But also the Yankees get a pick, right? So the Yankees are going to get I think between first and second round pick or something like that for winning.
Oh,
Yep.
all right. That's all right. That just changes it because I was going to say if
Yep.
you're a team like the Pirates and you always lose your players, do you really want your guy to win the Cy Young Award? It's
Or
almost like
the rookie of the year award. Yeah.
or the Rookie of the Year. Like, well, yeah, we have a Rookie of the Year winner. Now we're going to lose him in
Well,
2029.
this was
instead of 30.
negotiated. The teams didn't want it, right? Like this was the bargaining and the collective bargaining. Like the teams were trying to say, like you're manipulating our service time. What's up? Like we don't want you to do that. We want you to call players up when they're ready to be in the major leagues. And the very kind of weak solution that they came up with was, well, if he wins Rookie of the Year, then he could have, then we'll eliminate that. It's eliminating the Chris Bryant problem, basically.
Right. And the Yankees did that with Glaber, I believe. They waited a certain amount of time or whatever.
They did with Jason
just,
Dominguez this year.
Maybe.
Dominguez was called up the day after. He would have earned an extra year of
Oh, I didn't realize it was the day after. Okay.
It was the day. Right. So, and Dominguez is also eligible for Rookie of the Year next year. And so in theory, he could win it. Yeah. So, I mean, it's good for Hill. I hate to say it this way, but like, I don't think Luis Hill's making it to free agency or like, he doesn't, I don't know how healthy he's going to be. And so I think the Yankees going to try to pitch him now and get as much out of him as he can. I'm curious to see what he does next year, right? Hill was such an inconsistent player, in part because he just was like at his innings limit, and you could see him fade late in the season with the innings limit. But you also saw periods where Hill had like solved his control problems for long stretches during the season. He became like an average or better control pitcher with incredible stuff. His fastball starts tailing off late in the season. His control problems come back. Like he loses it as we expected, right? We predicted this when he started being really good, and we were discussing should he go to the bullpen, all that kind of stuff. But now he gets to rest, he gets to train in the offseason, he gets to come in knowing that he's going to be a starter. I think he can be pretty good. Like I think Hill's got some great stuff. And I just, we just gotta see in spring training how he looks. I want to see him throwing 98 again.
Yes, me too. All right, EJ, do you have anything else for us?
It's been a pretty light baseball week. So I think that's about it. I'm writing something on Spencer Jones right now. So I'm going to, for next week, we'll talk about it. I want to see, is Spencer Jones any good? Here's one actually. Last week on the show, we were talking about kind of how do you save money, right? Like if you sign Juan Soto, how do you upgrade at first base? And I think I figured it out. I think the answer is trade Marcus Stroman.
Mm-hmm.
And I at first thought maybe he wasn't very tradable. That's a lot of money. But then I
18
saw
million.
Nick Martinez on the Reds, who's a good pitcher, but not a great pitcher. Doesn't throw a lot of innings. Has a low 3 ERA, but I don't know. He just accepted a qualifying offer. So he has a 1-year, $21 million deal. And Luis Severino might accept a qualifying offer, who had a ERA over 4 last year. It seems like the price of pitching is high right now. And I suspect that some team, kind of like the Yankees last year, might look at Stroman at that price and say, I think we can. I think we're willing to pay for it, or at least take some of his salary. I could see the Yankees giving away a little bit of salary for someone to take Stroman, but freeing up $12-13 million. And at that price, he's a pretty good bet. And the Yankees don't really need him. What teams? I mean, there's lots of teams out there that could just kind of use a guy. I think also the Athletics are an interesting pick. So the Athletics are in a weird spot that they have no players making over the minimum. And no players making over the minimum, which means in order for them to qualify for revenue sharing, they need to spend more money. But no one's going to want to sign there because they're playing in a minor league stadium in Sacramento in the summer for 3 years. And they're the Oakland Athletics. They're a little bit of a weird organization. I'm sure they could overpay and sign some backup catcher to, there's ways they could spend that money, or they could trade for guys who are a little bit overpriced, but are, going to give them innings or whatever. I think Marcus Stroman could be that guy. So I wouldn't be shocked to see that happen. It's kind of not the nicest thing to do for Stroman, unfortunately, because I think Stroman was really happy to play in New York, but he doesn't have a no trade clause, and he's not in the rotation right now. And so I think if you sign Soto, that's one way to free up some money. And I was able to kind of finagle Blake Snell on the roster if I trade for Yandy Diaz, who's only making $10 million. And so there's ways to save a little bit of money and still upgrade the team with Soto. It depends on Soto's cost at this point. I was assuming $46 million, I think. But I think last week we were a little too pessimistic. I think there is still some room on this in this payroll, in this budget, if you trade Stroman and maybe some other guys to upgrade the team other than Soto.
All right, so let me ask you one last thing. I think Rodon's getting $27 million.
Yeah, is that tradable? I don't know. That's a lot of money.
All right, so Yankees eat 7. Now he's a $20 million pitcher. That's underneath the qualifying
7 per year.
offer.
Yeah, maybe. I could see that, but then the question is it worth whether the Yankees to eat 7, right? Because then instead of paying 28 for Blake Snell, you're paying 35 for Blake Snell, right? It's a good question. I also think he has a no trade clause. So maybe. I think Carlos Rodon should be in a big ballpark, right? He's got fly ball pitcher, did really well in San Francisco. I think he could succeed in a ballpark like, say, Detroit. But he's got a lot more money. It's not just like average annual value; it's years, right? Mm-hmm. There's another $100 something million on that contract versus 36 for Stroman. So
maybe get rid of both of them.
I mean, maybe if pitching prices go that high, maybe I think he'd have to have a better year for that to happen, though. And then you don't want to trade him, right?
That is you know what? I was saying it during the World Series and the playoffs. If somebody offered me Giancarlo Stanton, everyone's like, "See, I told you shouldn't have traded him. I told you."
Take him. Anyone could take him. That'd be great. I just don't think I think everyone's smarter than that these days.
I do too, but there's still fans that disagree. Oh no, you should never get rid of him. Baloney. All right,
and Giancarlo's got a no trade clause too, right?
He does. He does. But there's a lot of times the no trade clause is just you got to give me a little more money, make it a little more.
Yeah, but he's already overpaid, right?
Right. Yep.
Right.
All right, EJ.
Yeah, go for it.
Have yourself a wonderful week, and you have so many articles you've written. We're getting through of them. We don't run them every day on Start Spreading the News. We sort of space it out because it's something.
I write. I enjoy writing, and so I
I
got the
love it.
baby, and so
It's
putting out a
great.
blog
So
post
so
while he
it's
sleeps.
it's like something that you really savor. So here's this one. Wait a couple days. Here's that one. So
And luckily, there's no news, and so none of these are getting old, right?
no, they're not getting stale at all. They're still great. So thank you for all that. And we'll see you next week.